Good morning once again. My name is Shola Ajani, School of Consulting, and welcome to the fifth module of the training. Today we're looking at provisioning. How do we deliver on the value we have promised as a consultant? How do we deliver? What are the steps? What are the critical steps in delivering the solution the client has asked for? These are not important step in the consulting process. If you remember clearly, the client will come to us with a problem. So that's the first thing. Or they've come to us with a problem that they know we can solve. Remember, we said be known for a problem. And that's the reason why they've come to you, because you can solve the problem. It's the problem that you own as a consultant. They've come to you. So that's the first thing. We also looked at the process. You have a clearly defined process, a method for solving the problem. And of course, module 3, we looked at the product. You have a product that you have out there. Perhaps it's the product that they saw, and that's what attracted them, because the product is what we will advertise in stage 4, positioning. So position is about why the market will choose you, and it's essentially because you've advertised your product, the product that will solve the problem. So today we're looking at how then do we deliver? What are the steps, the process of delivering on that promise to solve the problem? So once you have a client's problem or a client is before you, what are the steps that you take to solve the problem? Of course, you can vary the steps, but these are fundamental. Fundamental things to ensure that you deliver on the promise. Okay? You deliver on the promise. Hold on, please. All right, welcome back to the class. This is module 5 of the School of Consulting Training, the part 1, in Consulting Fundamentals. We've looked through, we're looking through the 6P framework, which started by looking at the problem. One of the things we advise us to do is to have a problem that attracts the clients to you. So we've looked at that. Every consultant must have a problem that brings people to them. Number 2, a clearly defined process. Number 3, a product that you anchor the problem on. So presumably, it is that product that someone has seen in step 4, the positioning in the advertising. That's why they've come to you. So now is to deliver the assignment, which is called provisioning, the provisioning to deliver on the assignment. And there are some fundamental things about delivering the assignments, which is what we want to look at today, before the last class next week on performance. Performance is how well are you doing as a consultant, and what are the things you need to have in place to perform as a consultant. We've lost Dr. Razak now. So module 5 is what we're looking at this morning. It's called provisioning. How do we deliver? Essentially focusing on how do we deliver on the consulting assignment. So what is provisioning? It is the stage where consulting moves basically to execution, where you execute the consulting assignment, the execution. It is where you deliver the solution promised to the clients, where you deliver real results. Remember, they've come to us because they have a need, they have a challenge, they have a problem. What are the steps to take to ensure that we deliver to solve the problem? What are the steps to take to ensure that we deliver? So essentially, that's what we're looking at today. How do we deliver? How do we provide the solution? Now, one of the very first things you need to carry out before starting any consulting assignment is what we call your organizational readiness assessment. Organizational readiness assessment. Now, the reason why you do that, or why you do this, is very, very simple. If In fact, one of the reasons why projects fail or a consulting assignment might fail is because the client was not ready in the first place. So once the client is not ready, then the likelihood of your consulting assignment succeeding, in spite of your best intentions, the likelihood of success is low. So one of the very first things when we get to the stage of implementing, so the client has come to us that they want us to help them to solve the problem. We've told them our processes. I mean, they've come to us. I mean, after all the advertising, we define a problem. This is how we do it. They've come to us. Okay, can you do this? Can you solve this problem? The very first thing you need to do before you go starting to solve the problem is to assess their level of readiness. To assess their level of readiness. Because they are not fully ready, that can impact on the success of the assignment. Now, what we have here is a recommendation by ProSci of the different things to look at. What is their leadership support like? Is the leadership in tune? Are they ready? The employees are aware? What's the communication strategy? What are the training and resources available? What has brought us this far? What are the changes that they have gone through? How has resistance been managed? What is your culture and values of the organization? Now, this is just a sample. You can ask many more questions, especially to do with, say, for instance, Obert, you are in taxation. You may want to find out their history of tax compliance. You may want to find out their background. You may want to find out what are the systems they use. So this is not specifically, this is the limit to what you can use. Find out as many questions as possible. Engineer Kamal, you may be wanting to answer the client, what have you tried before? And that's your change history. What have you tried before? Have you had similar equipment? I mean, is this a big equipment? Is this a new project or you are building it? So there's so many things you need to ask because that would inform how you would help the client. So the very first thing we want to find out is the organization ready? And it's not just asking the client if they're ready. The purpose of this is to bring them to a state of readiness. I repeat, the overall essence of the organizational readiness assessment before we start to implement, before we start to try and solve the client solve the problem for the clients, is to find out the state of readiness. And if they are not ready, we need to bring them to a state of readiness. So for every of the readiness category that you use, you want to score them, you want to rate them, they must all be on ready or at least partially ready. Because if they're not ready, it may impact on the final outcome of your project, in spite of your best intention, your plans, everything. So number one is find out if they're ready. And if they're not ready, bring them to a state of readiness. I learned this the hard way in my career. Massive project that I did for UBA Africa in 1 year. The following year, I went back to them and said, let's do it again. They said no. In fact, the assignment was $100,000. So it was a very, very good assignment. I went back the following year, they said no. And I said, why? They said, well, the last one that we did last year failed. And I'm thinking, how did it fail? You wanted me to bring in people from America, from all over the place. I brought them. So what do you mean by it failed? As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Jani, recruit for us, do your global recruitment, find people for us from across the world. And I've done that. So as far as I'm concerned, I've delivered on what you asked me to do. However, sustainability, the people I brought did not last 6 months. They didn't stay for 6 months. Why? Because the organization was not ready. Who got the blame? I got the blame. And so I learned a hard lesson. Subsequently, any assignment I was going to be involved in, I was like, ask the clients, are you ready? And I had a test, a way of assessing if they're ready. Because the success of my project is built on how ready the organization is. So the very first thing before you start any assignment is you want to find out the readiness of the organization. That's the first thing. Then the next thing you want to be looking at is what we call the change impact assessments. Change impact assessments. What changes will be necessary because of this assignment? You ask the clients, what changes will be necessary because of this assignment? So ProSci, which is a change management organization, has given us 10 questions to ask. How a consulting assignment or a consulting project might affect a person's job. How it might affect a person's job. So you carry out a change impact analysis. Change impact analysis. So besides trying to find out the client is ready for the assignment, always carry out a change impact analysis. So because every consulting assignment is a change. So you want to find out this change that we're bringing, what impact would it have on the people, on the organization? So you carry out a change impact analysis. So that's the second thing that you should do before you start the assignment. Now, all of these things are very, very critical before we start a consulting assignment. Then number 3, you need to have a project plan. You need to have a project plan of how you will deliver the assignments. You need to put together a project plan. And as a consultant or project manager, this is your responsibility. So you put together a project plan, what needs to be done, the different aspects of what needs to be carried out over the period of next 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. You have a plan. And that plan becomes your guide in the implementation of the project. Your plan is a forecast that you base your delivery on. It's just like someone that wants to build a house. You don't just start building a house. You have a plan that you have, and you follow that plan. Even though, yes, you might make changes, but at least you have a baseline. So you have a plan to use to deliver on the assignment. So 3 things so far. Carry out, is the organization ready? Then this change that we are trying to implement, how is it going to impact on, say, for instance, on a person's job? And then number 3, we put together a plan to deliver on the assignment. Okay. Now, remember, we are trying to deliver on the projects, trying to help the client to solve the problem. These 3 things, and I think there's more, are very fundamental to whether your assignment will succeed or not. So you notice that I've not gone into what are the things you will do. So before you do those things, number 1, find out, is the organization ready? If they're not ready, bring them to a state of readiness. Number 2, carry out what we call a change impact analysis. So because every assignment, every consulting assignment is a change. You're trying to implement a change. So it's critical, before you implement that change, you carry out a change impact analysis. And this is an example for an example of a potential person's, the impact on a potential person's job. So if you want to carry out that, you need to do that. Then number 3, before you start anything, you need a plan that you're going to work with. What is the plan, the project plan? You need to have a project plan, and what we call, within that project plan is your milestone tracker. You track major critical milestones. So you need this. So this is your guide in your implementation roadmap. Yeah. So what is your implementation roadmap? There are 6 stages, 4 stages, 5 stages. How many stages do you want for your assignments? So in this one, we diagnose the current state of the client, the current problem. Yeah. So we diagnose that. And then next thing is the solution design, your implementation pilot or full implementation. You go live and then you close the project. So you must have a roadmap. of implementation. We call it implementation roadmap. Again, this is a guide. Simply saying you must have, so this is a plan, project plan. What is the roadmap? How do you intend to implement it? What are the different steps that you would take to deliver on the assignment? All of these are things that are critical before you start. The next thing again is you need to see what are the risks? What are the problems we might encounter in this assignment? What are the risks? So there are 5 things I've talked about, even before you start delivering on the consulting assignment. Number 1, find out is the clients ready? And if they're not ready, bring them to a state of readiness. That's number 1. Number 2, carry out a change impact analysis. This project that we're about to do, you are moving from A to B. It's a change project. So you want to carry out what we call the change impact assessment or change impact analysis. What are the potential repercussions for implementing this assignment? You need to carry that out. Then number 3, you need to have a project plan. A project plan of your focus of activities, timeline, the deliverables, what you are going to do. And then your project plan and your implementation roadmap are very similar. It is what is the next, how long is it going to take? And what are the stages that you're going to use to deliver the assignment? And then finally, what are the inherent risks? So you have a risk management plan. You have a risk management, what can go wrong? So you identify what can go wrong, and then you put in plans in the event that those things that you have identified occur or it happens. It's your risk management plan. So those 5 things are these 5 things are very critical before you start the consulting assignment, okay? Before you start your consulting assignment. Another thing that you can use, and this is very useful, it helps projects or consulting assignments to succeed. We call it the ADKAR model. ADKAR model. So remember, any consulting assignment mostly is a change. These are change principles that we are bringing to consulting. So ADKAR is talking about change. ADKAR. For most projects that this is integrated into, it has a higher chances of success when you integrate the ADKAR model. What is the ADKAR model? It says before the change starts, create an awareness of the change, sell the change, let people know about the change. Don't just spring change on people. If people are aware of the change, they discuss it, they know the impact, they are more likely to accept it, and the resistance will be low. So that's A, create an awareness of the change that is coming. Adverts, publicity, town hall meetings, group meetings, strategy meetings, client meetings, workers meetings. Do all of that to create awareness of the change. Don't start the change and then you now start creating awareness. No. All the objections, all the concerns will be addressed when you do this awareness, when you carry out the awareness talk, awareness creation of the coming change. So the first thing is, in any change, create an awareness. This is called the ADKAR model. And then after you create an awareness, it is hoped that the desire to accept the change or to support the change will be there because you have carried people along. You have explained to them. You have dealt with all the objections. Yeah. And then besides that, people need to understand how the change will come about. They need to know what are the steps, what are the processes, what are the impacts of the change. They need to know. Okay, so that's the creating the knowledge, creating awareness, not just awareness, knowledge about what would happen. And then ability. You give people the ability to implement the change. You don't just talk about change and they are not equipped with ability. Ability could be training. What is the training that will come to help us with this change that is coming, to help us in the new regime, to help us in using the new system? What are the supports? How would you give us the ability to use the tools in the new regime, in the change that is coming is very critical. So here is training, support handholding, manuals. What are the things that are there that you're going to use for us? And then finally, to reinforce the change, you don't just carry out change without putting in, it could be a reward, it could be a penalty. So that is to sustain the change, that these are the rewards if we carry out this change, and these are the penalties if we don't do it. So reinforcement is about ensuring that the change is sustainable, not that after 3 months, people go back to do what they are doing before. In fact, in some cases, performance measurement, how well you perform is a way of reinforcing change. If you do well in the organization, this is what you get. So when they do performance assessment, they're looking at you, how well are you performing? If you perform well, we reward you. If you don't perform well, we don't reward you. So ADKAR, please write this down somewhere. You need to have an understanding of ADKAR. ADKAR helps change to succeed. And remember what we said, every consulting assignment technically is a change. If anybody is moving from A to B, it's a change. If they want to solve a problem, they're going to use a change mechanism to solve the problem. Okay? So all these are critical that we are aware of even before we start to implement the solution for the client. Now, clients don't just pay for advice. They want implementation and outcomes. What are the outcomes? The outcomes that will solve their needs, that will solve their problem. So once we are able to provide the solution in terms of provisioning, we are looking at a satisfied client. A client that can look back and say, you have met my needs. And of course, an happy client is a client that will come back or will refer other people. So delivering on the promise is very, very critical. You have a client that is happy that you have solved their problem. They might come back or tell other people about what you have done. So it's critical that we provide a solution and the client is happy. So in terms of implementation stages in consulting, there are 6 stages. These are the 6 stages. Now, remember what I said, these 5 steps, carrying out if they're ready, carrying out the change impact assessments, putting together a project plan, your implementation roadmap, risk management, even rolling out an ADKAR model to change. All of these must be in place before you start, before your implementation. Yeah, before your implementation, you'll have done all of that. My advice is if most of that are not in place, don't start the implementation. Say, for instance, the client is not ready. You need to bring them to a state of readiness. So these are the 5 or 6 steps when you are implementing in consulting. Number 1, project initiation. What is project initiation? So the very first thing after all those, what do you want to call it? You can call it house cleaning exercise. The very first thing is your project initiation. What is the scope and what is the objective? So this assignment that we are carrying out, what does it cover? And what does it not cover? So scope is not just what it covers, it also talks about what is not covered. And then what do we want to achieve? So the very first thing in implementation, which is called project initiation, is talking about confirming what the project is all about. And then why are we doing what we are doing? The reason why you are doing what you are doing is so that at the end, you can look back. We have achieved the objective of this assignment. So scope is not just what we are doing. Scope is also what is not covered, what we are not doing. Number 2, what are the deliverables? What are the outcomes? What will the client get? And at every stage. So you have, in fact, your deliverables will have been covered when you're talking about your implementation roadmap and your milestones. At these places, these 2 stages, your deliverables. So for instance, diagnosis, what is the outcome of diagnosis? Solution, what is the outcome? So for each of the phase of the assignment, what is the outcome? That is your deliverable. That's your deliverable, sorry. Yeah, that's your deliverable. And then how do you measure success? Yeah, so it's critical that every step of the deliverable, you're able to measure success. How do you measure success? So how do you measure success is a function of, have we met the deliverable in the project plan or not? Have we met the standard? Have we made the agreed standard? We are meant to finish stage 1 by the end of April, and then we are still in May. So even delivering on time is a success metrics. Delivering to budget is a success metrics. Delivering according to the project plan is a success metrics. So you need to have metrics to measure success at every stage. Then here you establish the governance structure, whether you are using a project board, have a governance structure. And most governance structure involves at least the project sponsor, quality assurance, the users, the project manager, and maybe the board. So you have people that form the governance. And what they do is, these are the ones that run, that manage the project, even though you are the project manager that does the day-to-day management, but you have a governance board that overlooks the project implementation. And then agree communication and reporting framework. The reporting framework is, how often do you report the progress of the project to the governance board or to the project board? So you agree all of this. This is your first thing before you start anything. What are we covering? What are we not covering? What do we want to achieve? What are the deliverables? What are the things that we will deliver? And then how do we measure success? What's the governance board to manage this project? So you don't manage a project in isolation. You have a governance board that maybe meets every week or every month. At least most governance boards meet every month. And there you report to them, you communicate, you do your project status updates to the board. It is this board that facilitates changes. If there are changes that needs to be made to the project plan, it is this board that approves those changes. If there are more money to be made, to be released, or any major thing that needs to be done, you need to go through the project board. So you establish all that in stage 1. Then your stage 2 is your diagnosis and baseline assessment. Where are we in this consulting assignments, in this project, or whatever you want to? You want to buy a new generator, you want to build a new house. Where are we now? So your stage 2 is to capture the current state. Okay, capture the current state, identify root causes, and then you have baseline metrics. These are the things that, these are the factors that we'll consider as baseline in terms of our deliverables. So you understand that, you define that from the onset. So that's your stage 2. Understand where the client is now. Look at their systems, look at their structures, look at how they work, all the root cause analysis. Just capture a capture of where the client is presently. That is your stage 2. Your stage 3 is now going away to come up with a solution. You go away to come up with a solution to the client's problem, and then how to implement the client's solution. Okay, so your implementation roadmap here is part of what we have mentioned earlier. In terms of this, you identify what the problem is, you've captured where they are, you know who the stakeholders are, you know what the problem is, you've done your research, your root cause analysis, and then stage 3, you come up with a solution design. It's a design, it's not been implemented. It's a suggested approach to solve the problem. That's your stage 3. Then stage 4, once the client has signed this off, your solution design is presented to the board, of which includes the owner of the project. Once it's been signed off, then you can now go ahead to implement. Okay, whatever it is you're doing, introduce new systems or processes, you introduce that. You deploy the agreed solution. You implement the solution. And part of the implementation is training the team. Remember what we talked about training. You don't carry out implementation without factoring training. So you train. and then you monitor the milestones. The milestones are, say, you have a 6 months project, and then you want to use a monthly milestone. So a 6 months project, what have we achieved in January? What have we achieved in February, March, April, May, June? Those becomes your milestones. You need to measure it. If your milestone is shifting, then there's a problem. In your project plan, say you do something by end of January. If you have not done it by March, there's serious problem. So that's why you need to monitor your milestone. So if you are in your plan, you say you finish something by the end of January, and February you are still on it, March you are still on it, then you need to really find out what is causing that delay, and then try and make sure that, because once you can't achieve what you want to achieve in January, it will affect other things you want to achieve in February, March, and May. So there's no way you can finish it in 6 months if you don't adjust or deal with that problem that is causing that delay. And that's part of the implementation. The implementation is not just to deliver, but to make sure that you deliver based on the plan. So that's why it's critical to measure to monitor your milestone. Okay. And then this is basically ensuring that the system goes live. This is adoption. The change goes live. The process goes live, depending on what you are doing. You are implementing. I'm trying to do for an example now. Say somebody comes to Engineer Kamal, he wants to buy a generator. This is at this point that you now install the generator, ensure that generator is working very well. And then you transfer the generator to the owner. So these are the points whereby you fully implement, you hand over. And then stage 6 is your review. You measure result against objective. Remember what we said? You have objectives here. And so stage 6, we're now looking back, have we achieved our objective? You conduct post-implementation review. Are there things that we could have done better? What are the lessons learned? And then if there are things that you think were missed out, you can add it to as recommendation. You can add as recommended next steps, improvement steps to sustain what you have done. Say, for instance, let me use generator example. Maybe all they've asked for is generator and they don't have a generator house. Part of what you can advise is a generator house, just as basic as that. I'm just using as an example. It may not have been part of what was captured. So you've installed generator, and then you're advising them there are other things you can do to ensure that the generator works very well, the generation is well maintained, a service level agreement, all those kind of things. If they don't have it already, you can recommend it for the generator they just bought from Engineer Kamal. Okay. So what are the toolkits to ensure successful delivery? Number 1, the project plan, we mentioned that. Milestone tracker, implementation roadmap, your governance structure, your risk assessment, your change management framework, regular progress review meetings. These are some of the things that must be in place to ensure that you are able to deliver on the promise. This is an example of a project update report every month. We call it different names, status updates. So executive summary, where are we on the project? Status dashboard, scope on track, timeline, slight delay, budget on track, stakeholder, risk moderate, you list all of that. Key activities completed, activities planned for the next period, key deliverables. So you have a report that captures where you are on the project. And this is very, very critical that you submit this to the clients on a monthly basis. And so this forms the basis for looking at it. Are we on track? Or what do we need to do? Is there a delay? What do we need to do as a client? So this is a case study. We have a client who is a regional business network. Their problem is slow growth and ineffective structure. So what is your consulting intervention? Diagnosis of their structure, review of their regional system, and then training. So it is hoped that at the end of this, you have improved coordination, decision-making becomes faster, accelerated growth. I use this for a church. That's why I'm using an example. Accelerated growth. It's just an example. So 3 things: who is the client? What is the intervention? What is the result? Okay. Now, sustainability is very critical. Sustainability is very, very critical. And these are some of the things that you have to ensure sustainability. Any project that you are involved in, let there be documentation, because as a consultant, you will leave. Ensure value continues after the consultant leaves. You will leave. It's critical that you document everything that you do, everything that you have done on that project, document it. So when you are no longer there, they can go back to documents to get an understanding of what you are doing. Number 2, training is very, very critical. Training is critical. You are leaving. Transfer knowledge to the staff. Yeah, transfer knowledge. Internal ownership is critical, so that not that when you leave, everything falls apart. Transfer ownership. In fact, one of the things I do, which I recommend to you, is whenever I start a project, I always ask for internal staff from that organization to join my project team. It helps a lot. They help me get information. They help me to reduce resistance, and much more. When I leave, there's been somebody from the organization that has been working with me that has gained knowledge, that has retained knowledge. So most times they end up leading the project after I have left. Excuse me. Another important thing is your governance structure. They own it. You are going to exit. Your governance structure is largely from the client side. So they will own it, and then they own it after you have exited. All of these things helps in sustainability to sustain the project going forward beyond your exit. So it is not when you submit your report, that means you have finished the assignment. It's not just about the report, it's about the value, the changes, the improvements that the client now enjoys because of your intervention, the satisfaction of having delivered on that assignment. So it's very, very important. What is provisioning? What is delivery? What's consulting delivery? It is the value you leave with the clients when you finish. And the value, value is value add. The additional benefit that your intervention that you're coming about has brought about to the clients. What is the improvement? Have you helped the client to achieve why they came to you? Remember, they came to you with a need. Have I been able to help the client solve the problem? Have I been able to move the client from where they were? Remember, one of the things that we captured was their current state. Yeah. Have I been able to move them beyond their current state? So moving a client beyond their current state is adding value. And that is the basis for provisioning. We don't just provision, we don't just deliver the assignment for the sake of delivering it. We deliver it to move the client to the next level, to move the client to a better state. Okay. So my assignment for the class, I think I have about 3 assignments now. I don't mind doing all the assignments together, but please, the assignment is the 3rd assignment, or even the 4th assignment. I need to check that. But what I do is I usually put all the assignments together and I'll send it as a file. So the question for the assignment is, what are the major things that can make a consulting project to fail? In fact, let's discuss it. So that we are done with it. What are the major things that can make a consulting project to fail? You are a consultant. So based on what we have been talking about from the onset, have a problem as a consultant, and then you have a problem. So the client now comes to you to solve the problem. So in solving that problem, what are the things that can hinder you from success? What are they? Let's go to Dr. Abdulrazak. What are the things that can stop a project from succeeding, Dr. Razak? Dr. Razak, are you there? Engineer Kamal, what do you think can stop or can lead to the failure of a consulting assignment? Engineer Rasak.
Doug, good morning again.
Okay.
Along the line, I had a network challenge.
Okay.
But what I can add up is that, one, the success of every project will depend on a sustainability plan.
Good.
There should be a sustainability plan.
Good. All right.
And that would include proper documentation, training and capacity development plan for the organization, internal ownership by bringing on board some of the staff who will be part of the processes.
Okay.
So that even when you are not there.
You are reading back to me what I taught you. That's fine. But let me ask you a question. If somebody gives you an assignment, completing the assignment, when you complete the assignment, does that mean this assignment is successful by simply just completing the assignment?
Completing the assignment without it being implemented successfully is not complete.
So does that mean it's successful if I simply complete the assignment?
No, until the goal is achieved of the organization.
Thank you. Engineer Kamal, let's go back to the slide Engineer Kamal, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
So what are the major things that can make a consulting project to fail? What are the major things that can make a consulting project to fail, Engineer Kamal?
Yeah, good morning, class. Those things that can make a consulting project to fail when there is first and foremost, no correct project plan. There is no correct project plan, and also if the diagnosis is not correctly done,
yeah.
In the course of the project, if the client is not cooperating, and if in the case that the staff or whoever that is attached to the consulting team to work with the team, if it's not divulging correct information, it's going to drag the project, because we're talking about positioning. And if we want to position, then definitely we must have the correct information to work with. A consultant, in as much that we are experts, we cannot know if correct information are not given to us, it will drag the project. So, and we will, so I rightly said, it's for our team to be able to work with the client rep. And if he's cooperating very well, yes, definitely it will divulge necessary information for us to work with. We have necessary materials to work with, to implement, and then it will make the project faster and more faster.
Okay.
And checking all the deliverables, we'll make sure all bodies are tick, all milestones are completed, and also we must what I mean by ownership, we take ownership of the project alongside the client. There must be no ball passing. We want to achieve a goal of making this project to succeed. So all of us must work as a team, and we must implement the project very well. And there must be project transfer. I need training. You must be able to train to be able to hand over properly, so that when we are done, we hand over, the client can take off from there. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, fantastic. Very good, very comprehensive. Let's go to Obert. Obert, what are the major things that can make a consulting project to fail?
Thank you, sir. I think from my perspective, I think one of them is when you don't understand the client's problem. If that problem has not been properly diagnosed, then it will be difficult really to implement a successful a project, and then also not bringing the client on board from the beginning. So the project will be going on, but the client may not be fully on board, implying that even as you implement, at the end of the day, you realize that the outcome will not add any value to the client, because at the end of the day, when you do a project, we know that when you implement, there must be real change. There must be a difference from the time the project started up to the time the project comes to an end. Yeah, and that comes about because the client has not been fully on board. So bringing the client on board is very, very, very key, to the extent that even as the implementation process is going on, it should be a must that there should be staff from the client side. That will be part and parcel of the project implementation, and that even makes it easy to hand over, because you would have been working with one of the clients, one of the staff members from the internal structure, such that even when you transfer the ownership to the client, it becomes very easy to ensure that the project succeeds and the outcome are positive. Yeah, so for me, I think that's the point I thought I could belabor on as to why a project would fail. I submit, sir.
Fantastic. So what I want to do now is I want us to create a checklist of what we need to have in place to ensure a project does not fail. A checklist, and we'll do it together. A checklist of what we need to have in place to ensure a project does not fail. So when you start your consultancy, you can use this checklist. Yeah, you can use this checklist to ensure that before you start any project, use it. So number one, ask yourself, the first checklist is, does the organization have a readiness? Are they ready? That's your first checklist. Yeah, so first checklist is, are they ready? Then to bring them to a state of readiness, first checklist. Number two checklist, we need to carry out a change impact assessment. Change impact assessments. This whole exercise is a change project. So we need to carry out an impact assessment of the proposed change. How will this change affect someone's job? Or how will this change affect the organization? That's number two. Then number three, we need to have a project plan in place. Or is there a project plan? That's number three, project plan with milestone tracker. That's number three checklist. Number three or number four, you can add this to your number three, is what is the implementation roadmap? Is there an implementation roadmap? That's your number four checklist. And then risk assessments. Have we carried out risk assessments? That's number five. Have we carried out risk assessments? Yeah. Number six is, what change model are we using? There are different change models. What change management model are we using? This is an example. There are several. But ask yourself, what change management model are we using? That's number six, yeah? That's number six, yeah? Then number seven, has the implementation stages been defined? What are the implementation stages? What are the implementation stages? Has it been defined? What are the implementation stages? Has it been defined? Your project initiation. So number seven or number eight, has the scope and objective been defined? What is the scope and objective of this project? Yeah. What are the deliverables and what are the success metrics? So all of these project initiation are 4 checklists straight away. So add this to your checklist. I think we have about 12 now, 11 or 12. So your project initiation, this can be checklists. Are these things in place? Stage 1 is stage 1 in place. Number 2, stage 2, again, what is the current state? Has the current state been established? Yeah. Number 2, basically list all of this as checklists. Stage 2 is the checklist. This solution design, yeah. Again, list it as a checklist. Yeah. And the checklist, you use it before, during, and after. Use your checklist before, during, and after. Yeah, there are some things that you use the checklist for before the project. Yeah, there are some checklists that you use during the project. Yeah, for instance, all of this can be during the project, not before. It's during the project. Consulting framework, define processes, validate during the project. Solution design, implementation during the project. Yeah. So build all of this as your checklist. As your checklist. All of this as your checklist. So you have, effectively, you can have up to 50 points that you run as a checklist for every project. Another checklist is, this is now after you have finished the project. This is your checklist after you have finished the project. Measure the result against the objective. That is a checklist. Have we measured the result against the checklist, against the objective? Yeah, all of these items become a checklist. Yeah. Do we have project update reports? And so this becomes a guide for you for every assignment that you are doing. It can even be part of what you use as a consultant. So by the time you have a checklist, your checklist is basically an overview of what needs to be done so that you do it properly, your documentation, your processes. Just in case you miss anything out, you have your checklists. And like I said, you can split the checklist into 3. What needs to be done before the assignment starts? Remember what I said? Oh no, most of this, the first set of all of these ones must be in place before you start. That's what I said. Is the organization ready? Change impact assessment, project plan, roadmap, risk management assessment. You don't assess the risk when you have started. You assess it before you start. So you're saying, what can go wrong? All of these are, and then asking yourself, what change management model are we going to use? These are before you start. So you can have that checklist built into pre-project, during project, post-project. Okay. Any question, please? Any question? Any questions, sir? Dr. Abdul, any question?
For now, no.
Okay. Obat, any question?
Yes, I have a question. I just wanted to find out. I think in the previous lessons, one of the things that we were looking at is the issue of
which slide? Is it
funding. Hello?
I'm listening.
Yeah, one of the things that I think that we've learned is the issue of client acquisition, and one of the type of clients that was emphasized is where you have clients on retainer basis, meaning that you have them for a number of time. So now I was wondering whether when you have clients on retainer, you still need to use this project kind of approach, especially that a project has got a beginning and an end, and the client that is on retainer, you find that you may be with them for some time. So I wanted to just appreciate how clients on retainership can be managed based on the project, using the project approach. Yeah, that's my question.
It depends on what work needs to be done, even in the retainership. Okay, let me give you an example. Maybe an HR consultant that has been retained. And one of the things to do in your retainership is to help them with recruitment. Even though you're an HR consultant, they've retained you. Or in fact, let me use your example. You're a tax inspector that has been retained by this company. And within your retainership, there are several assignments that you must deliver. Those assignments will be delivered as projects. Do you understand? Every assignment we deliver in that retainership are delivered as projects. So for every assignment, yes, you can introduce those principles of checklists. In fact, it's not necessarily a project management principle of having checklists. It's just a good practice of working. What are the things that we must ensure are in place to deliver on this assignment or to deliver on this piece of work? What are the things that must be in place? Okay, for instance, I want to travel to Accra, Ghana. That's something, an activity I want to carry out. My checklist is, what are the things I must have in place for this trip to Ghana to be successful? So it's not just a project management approach. It's a generic approach you can apply to everything, even though we're talking about project management here. So even though you have a retainership, within that retainership will be assignments, will be things you will deliver within that retainership. I'm suggesting that, look, for every assignment that you do, have a checklist of what needs to be done, so that you can compare like for like. And it can be a guide to successfully deliver the activity or the exercise. Yeah. So yes, even though it's a retainership, within a retainership, there are activities, there are projects that you carry out, there are assignments, there are deliverables. So for each of the deliverables, have a checklist of what needs to be done before, during, and after. Okay?
Yes, sir, I get it. Thank
Any
you so
other
much.
question? Okay, Engineer Kamal, any question from you?
Yeah, I'm okay from my side here.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right. So, please, what are the takeaways from today? What are the takeaways? What are your takeaways? Let's discuss your takeaways. Okay, let's go back to Dr. Razak. What is the major thing that has jumped out at you today, Dr. Razak? Dr. Razak? Dr. Razak, are you there?
Yes, the major thing that my takeaway today is that in every assignment, you should prepare for the ACA model, which will be a change process to help you succeed in your consultancy problem.
Now, let me say this. There are several models out there. I just use ATCA as an example.
Okay.
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 There are several models out there,
sir.
change models. So ATCA is just an
Exactly.
example. Okay. But good points.
Because the ACA model is supposed to get everybody on board.
Yeah.
For the change process.
Good. Okay. All right. Yes, thank you. Let's go to Obert. Obert, is there anything that is particularly striking to you on today's class?
Okay, for me, what is the strike? What that comes out, pops out quickly is client readiness. I think that one is very key.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, as a consultant, you just want to just go straight into providing a service to the client without the client being ready. So for me, that one is something that stands out as a key factor to take into account as you take up an assignment.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Engineer Kamal? Engineer Kamal. Engineer Kamal, sir. Engineer Kamal. All right, that's it for me from today. Any question, any more comments? So next week, we're looking at the final class. Any question, any comments, please? Any further comments or question? Dr. Razak?
My final question is that will the slides be made available, sir?
Yeah, I make it available every Saturday, so I'm going to make it available today.
Thank you, sir, Doc. Thank you, sir, Doc.
Okay. Obat, any question?
No question for now.
Okay, good. Engineer Kamal, is he back? All right, so let you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Any questions, you can always contact me on the WhatsApp group chat. All right, I'm going to end the class now. Thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye-bye for now.
Same to you, Doc. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir? Engineer Kamal, we were looking for you. Engineer Kamal?
Sir.
Yes, any other question from you?
No, I don't have any other question.
All right, enjoy your weekend. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, bye-bye.